So welcome to the leadership revision screencast for sports psychology. Leadership is one of those topics where we need some of the main theories, so quite a lot to get through. The first question, which is a fairly straightforward question, is the qualities of a good leader. So can you get three? So hopefully you've got some from this list. Just make sure that you've got different qualities that are going to be on separate points on the mark scheme, but a big long list that you can take your pick from. Second thing is that we need to know the different styles of leadership. So there are two main styles, so just write the two main styles down now. So hopefully we've got autocratic and democratic. Now you've got those, just write down when you would use them. So what types of groups or what situations that you would use each style. Okay, so we can see autocratic style is the style that where the leader makes all the decisions, whereas the democratic style is more player-centered, and the leader consults with the group and the players, so more player-centered. Just make sure you know the difference between these types of situations where you would use each style. So autocratic with older people, males, novices and large groups, and also within situations of where there's not much time, or if it's a dangerous or complex skill, whereas we have the opposite answers for the democratic style. So younger people, females, experts, a smaller group or individuals, where there's lots of time and when there isn't danger, or where the task is simple. Just be aware that sometimes people get a little bit muddled up with the age and the experience. So obviously these are in a way a little bit of an opposite answer, so that can sometimes be the one that might trip you up. So we can see here a typical question around autocratic style. So a quick description of what autocratic is, so that they make the decisions, and then you've got situations when you would use that style. You can see here the types of ones that we've just been talking about. So how is a leader appointed? And that's either an emergent leader or a prescribed leader. So quickly describe what each one of those is. So an emergent leader is elected by the team and comes from within the group, whereas the prescribed leader is appointed from outside by an external authority to come in and be the leader. So the two main models of leadership are relatively complicated, and you need to know these in a bit of detail. So firstly we have Fiedler's contingency model. Within this we have this thing called situational favourableness, and you need to know what factors affect situational favourableness. And remember, this is situational favourableness for the leader. So there are 4 factors, if you can try to get some of those now. There are also 2 styles of leadership, so although these are very similar to autocratic and democratic, Fiedler calls them something different. So again, if you can just jot down what Fiedler calls the 2 styles. And the last thing you should know is when to use each of those two styles. So when should we use them? So if we just add that on. Okay, so situational favourableness is dependent on these four factors up here at the top. So we have the relations between the group and the leader, we have the task, we have how much authority the leader has, and we have the resources available, for example the facilities. The two styles, the autocratic style we call task orientated in Fiedler's model, and the democratic style we call relationship orientated leaders. And basically what Fiedler says is that we should use a task style in the most and the least favourable situations, so at both ends of the model. So you can see here and here an autocratic task orientated style is more useful, whereas a relationship orientated style is more useful in a moderately favourable situation here. So you can see that here we're a typical question around this about the favourableness of the situation, and you can see that we get the answers from authority and relationship, the task and the resources. So if you know those four, you could easily get such a question. So the other model is Cella-Durai's multi-dimensional model, and this is a model that you kind of really need to know all of the parts to it and be able to explain how it works. So ideally you'd be able to jot down the model now and the different parts of it. So 8 boxes. I'm hoping this is what you're on doing. Okay, so we have 3 what we call antecedents, things that affect the leadership. And this is how it links together, that the situational factors give a required behaviour. So this links to this one. So the situation you're in gives you as a leader a required behaviour. The members of the group, the players if you like, have a preferred behaviour, that they would like you to act in a certain way or use a certain style. You as a leader might have a preferred style yourself, so that also impacts on the actual behaviour. But the key part of the model is this middle section here, and it's how these 3 factors interact. So a good leader would be one where the actual behaviour, so this is the actual thing that you're going to do, the style that you're going to use, would take into account what the required behaviour is and what the preferred behaviour is. So these 2 factors, in other words, what situation am I in and who have I got in my group in order to lead them in a certain way. If you take those 2 factors into consideration, then hopefully the group performance and the satisfaction of the players and the other people within the group will both be high. If that doesn't happen, if you don't take those 2 things into account, then these 2 outcomes, the performance and satisfaction, will be low. So you really need to know the workings of the model and be able to explain it in the different parts. Just be aware that a Cella-Durai question would come up when they talk about, exam board talk about being adaptable, leaders being adaptable. That's what Cella-Durai is talking about, because that's where we would adapt to the situation and to the members of the group. So you can see that some of these answers, so this is, for example, the last part of the model, but here you can see that we have the situation given a required behaviour, so we're starting to get those parts of the model, and the group members give a preferred behaviour, and then we have this idea of an actual behaviour, how you actually act. And the key part is that if all three match, that those two outcomes on the end, performance and satisfaction, will be good, and that therefore you need to adapt to the situation and to the group. So leadership, key questions, the easier questions could be around qualities of a leader, remember, and then we have the two styles and when to use them. We also, remember, have emergent and prescribed, and then we're into our models, so Fiedler's model and Cholladuri. So this is where you need your detail, you need to know these in a bit more detail.